that was a decision that two people made, the director and God.
I don't think God was a part of that. Don't put that on God. Don't put that on God.
God made her voice, is what I'm saying. And I'm sure for some uses, it's fine.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Super Agile Bros. This is your boy, Bradston. Also with our boys, Kyle and Steve in the building. It's going to be a good one. But this is just a podcast where we talk about everything and nothing. So let's see what we talk about today. So, okay. So I know Steve, he actually asked me before we started this recording, like, what are we going to talk about today? And he brought up Borderlands 3 because, like, what was that, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago we played Borderlands 3?
It was a week ago.
Yeah, like
it felt like longer.
It's been so many years.
How many times have I uninstalled, installed, and uninstalled that game? Dude, I can't even tell you. But I feel like Borderlands 3 is one of those games that deserves a discussion because it's the game that you like want to love, but like
it won't, I don't know. You.
Yeah, like. So I guess let me ask you guys, what do you guys feel about Borderlands 3, and we'll just talk some BL3, baby.
So I think we all have a shared love of Borderlands 2.
Yeah.
Which was kind of, I guess, the catalyst that got us into Borderlands 3 to begin with. Since a lot of the reviews and stuff said it was more of the same, And so that was my thinking going into it. What about you guys?
Oh, like my expectations?
Yeah.
I was excited. Like you said, I enjoyed Borderlands 2. I had never played any other Borderlands game. My entire experience, pretty much was just playing with you guys, and y'all are fun to play with, so that was good. And I figured, hey, it can't get any worse, right? Because at least if the game has the same mechanics and it engenders the same kind of experiences, then playing with Kyle and Brad will still be fun. Even if the reviews were talking about how they didn't really innovate any and how the dialogue was made them weary. And I underestimated that.
Unbearable would be a word that I'd like to use. Like, so I feel you guys like. We played Borderlands 2 first, and that was awesome, right? Because, like, at that point, me and Steve we were at the same house, right?
We were living together.
Yeah, so we were playing split screen, and then, like, Kyle would play with us. So, like, there was a whole nother element to that, like, me and Steve being in the same room, So that was super fun. And then Borderlands 2 is just a awesome game, like, hands down. And, I played Borderlands 1, the original, and it was, like nothing I'd ever played. So, I had high expectations for Borderlands 2, but, like, we jump into Borderlands 2 and I'm like, yo, this is better. Like, this is exactly what I was hoping Borderlands 1 would be, like in a way, even though I didn't know what to expect. I think for me, Borderlands 3, I wish it was more of the same, to be honest. Like, if anything, I just wish it was like DLC. Yeah. Like it almost feels like they went too hard trying to make it cooler, but it just made it not Borderlands. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like,
I think Borderlands, it was like it succeeded by having a whole lot of stuff, but it didn't feel like a whole lot. Whereas Borderlands 3, it feels like they intentionally tried to pack the game with as much as they could. So like you said, people are constantly talking, so there's not a moment of silence.
God.
Then the loot drops feel like everything's insignificant because there's a whole lot more of it, and then there's like duplicates of stuff, which I didn't really encounter much in Borderlands 2. So it just feels like too much.
So I think just numerically, it was cool that they added so many new ways to modify your gun. Like, oh, your gun can walk off and kamikaze people now. Like, that's fun. But there's a couple other things like that are new and different. But two problems. One, I felt like they really leaned into the new stuff, and there was some old mechanics that I liked from Borderlands 2 that I didn't necessarily see represented. It's been a while since I played Borderlands 2, but I just remember feeling like I missed certain guns. And the other problem with that is that I don't really feel like the new mechanics, like, they're cool, but I don't think that they really added to my game experience. You know, as I'm playing, I'm like, cool, my gun can walk off, but like, is that fun? Ooh. Is that something I can use strategically?
That's a good point.
I don't know.
Have you guys ever played, is it Halo 4? Yeah, Halo 4, because Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3 were made by Bungie, right? Like the original developers. And then Halo 4 is made by, what was it? 343 Studios.
404.
Industries.
Sorry, not even studios, man. They're industrial. But you know what's interesting? Like, I really like Halo 4, kind of. Like, I enjoyed it, but it kind of felt like, okay, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I feel like Borderlands 3 feels like the Halo 4 of the Halo series, in the sense that it was like a lot of people who loved the game and who really enjoyed different aspects. Oh, I love the loot. Oh, I love the goofy dialogue. Oh, I love, the crazy guns that do crazy things. And, they really like felt very enamored by these things. And they said, it would be better if we just had more of it. And like, in Halo 4, they do a good job of balancing out, like, hey, let's make a good game. We'll do a lot of fan service and things that people like, Cortana is now kind of a love interest, But in, like, Borderlands 3, just like, oh, man, Borderlands 2 had such witty dialogue. What if we added more witty dialogue? Like...
Everybody's the comic relief.
Exactly.
Yes.
Everybody.
Oh my goodness,
dude. That's it. Yo, like, everybody has to be funny. Everybody has to be a Tiny Tina if you play Borderlands 2. You know what I mean? Like, just wacky kind of character,
Zany.
Zany is a perfect word. And then, like, I think you mentioned it, like, the loot. Like, because people love loot, right? Like, all these wacky guns were cool, like fire powers and electricity. It's like they were like, people love that, so let's give them even more guns with even more weird stats. And so it kind of like make guns like, yo, like, you pick a thing up that you think is great, and then it shoots some weird bullets that shoot up. Remember, I had some gun that shot bullets upward.
I do remember that.
Like, what is
completely
this?
Useless.
I had a sniper rifle that was really cool, because when you got headshots, or maybe it wasn't even headshots, I think it was just when you shot somebody, it would, like, rain down, like, a comet on them or something. Like, it was like it was super dope, but the damage was so low. It was like a sniper rifle that did 14 damage.
Oh no!
So I grew out of it way too fast. I'm like, I can't keep using it because it's trash.
Yeah.
So that brings up a.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I was gonna say, that brings up a really good point about, because that's one of the things I think the difference between the loot for Borderlands 3 and 2 is that it, like, I think one of y'all mentioned it. You wanted to keep a gun and have a play style, and like the guns matched your character's loadout, which also made more sense. And it was just like everything felt harmonious. But in Borderlands 3, you're kind of working against the things you find, because it's all you pretty much have to work on, or compare it to the last thing that you were just using, is if it does more damage, because all the other things are either arbitrary, or even when you see them in action, you still don't really understand what exactly it's doing.
Yeah. It's almost like it was too deep. Like, the mechanics had such a high skill floor that we were not powerful enough to understand how to take advantage.
Enough to understand the power that is in your hands.
We just couldn't comprehend how to take advantage of the fancy sniper rifle that shoots up in the air,
Kyle, you made a point that I just occurred to me. When we played Borderlands 2, I felt like, even, how there was different classes for each, like, different character, and they were very clear, like, the difference. Like, it kind of, at least to me, it felt really clear. And
you mean the skill tree?
Yeah, like, if you're Zero, you're this type of player. If you're, the big brute guy, you're this type of player. And it kind of, led to how you would even engage with weapons, right? Like,
yeah,
because I was more stealthy and, you know, so on and so forth. I would be like snipers and like shotguns worked really well for me. But like in this game, I don't feel like the weapons really, like, first of all, my class is kind of cool. I kind of think it's pretty cool or whatever, kind of, sort of. But like, it just doesn't feel like there was that. I don't know if they considered that when they made it in 2 or something, or if it just naturally happened. But I don't know. What did y'all feel that, like, the weapons?
Well, maybe, I guess, Kyle, you can go first.
So I'll agree that the weapons felt like maybe they were non-specific enough to where, because in Borderlands 2, I was the commando, I think, and so I had a little turret, and so I could pretty much use whatever weapons, you know, and there wasn't, and so like I could use a sniper if I wanted to. I didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage. While now in Borderlands 3, I'm playing this character who's actually kind of similar to Commando because I have something I can drop, but it's a pet, and I have very little control over the pet. He's he's this monkey with a pistol, and he shoots without discretion.
Oh, George.
Oh, George.
He throws barrels. He throws explosive barrels.
Right, and they cause status effects on us, which look like damage, but I think they're not. But the biggest thing is, I don't have any weapons that complement either of us, because if I shoot from far away, I steal his kills, which him doing damage helps him to like get stronger and stuff. And then when I throw him out, it also buffs me to where I have like faster movement or something, like things that I don't know how to use in any scenarios with the weapons I have.
Yeah, that is weird.
Yeah.
So here's my thing. I don't know if I agree with the premise that Borderlands 2 had characters that had very defined, well-structured classes. Because I feel like you mentioned Zero, and you kind of said it yourself, like, you could use a sniper because you're sneaky, or you could use a shotgun. Those aren't really part of the same class of playstyle.
That's fair.
Well,
and
I have an opinion about that, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But yeah, it felt to me, the way I would describe Borderlands 2 was that your player had a class, but within that class, there was still a lot of room to specialize. So with Zero, I don't remember, you can tell me better than I can probably, but if I remember correctly, with Zero, you could really specialize with like the far range stuff and like get really good and like power up your headshots kind of thing. Or you could focus on melee, using your sword and like cutting through people and being invisible and stuff like that. And Gage, the Necromancer, was kind of similar. I went with I would start with like trying to do far distance stuff, but as I picked up kills and her aim gets worse with more kills, I moved to shotguns and her damage also gets better with more kills. So like I was just busting in there with shotguns and electrifying people, and you know, there's like different play styles, I would say, for each character. It's not just like one play style. And I think the same is true for Borderlands 3. I don't know if I can say those are better or worse or the same.
See,
maybe we didn't play enough. They don't feel good to me. But
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I think you actually kind of said what I was. So number one, it's not shotguns. You're right. It's melee. For Zero.
Oh,
but yeah, that's exactly the point. You know, like you can either really become like this super sniper kind of guy, or you could be the melee type. So it changes your play style. But I couldn't play like the Necromancer. Like it felt very different. Like I could tell that even the way that we approached fights was very, very different. You know,
yes.
like my goal, I want to go hit a dude because it gives me a buff, and the more people I hit, like with my melee, the more buffs I get, and then the more ridiculous I get, and then, you know, I do close range and I can go invisible, and then I make duplicate, you know, like it kind of like stacked. But like honestly, dude, like the dude I'm playing with, first of all, I don't even know his name. I don't even know, to be dead honest. The fact that I remember Zero is amazing. But
Zero's cool. That's why.
Yeah, and
he's in this game too.
Yeah, and you know, it's like the returning thing. The characters show up in the next game. But yeah, dude, he throws out a weird shield and then a robot, right? And I get it. Like, okay, he's kind of like a technological kind of person, like, but it doesn't really feel like, it just feels like a dude with abilities instead of like these really make me play differently. Like I don't, and like it doesn't, like I don't know how many times I've thrown that shield out in front of us and everybody just ignores it. Like even myself, like it's supposed to be helpful, but like we just run through it and just fight people because it's kind of at the end of the day it's just like shoot people. Like that's kind of what it feels. And then
also my aim was kind of bad, so I want to get close.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not really I don't think there's the urgency in this game when you have, especially when you have 3 people who are competent at shooters. There's really no urgency to throw a shield and be like, okay, we got to heal up in the shield or use it tactfully or anything. So maybe that's part of it, disconnect too.
Do you think Borderlands 2 was more tactical?
I remember us having like, because Steve was the necromancer and he would use his ability to like hold people up in the air and then...
Oh, no.
That's the...
What?
When we played with Tasha, she would play as the siren. And
that wasn't you. I also play with Simon, and he plays that character, so I thought you did that one too. But anyway,
I had that murder bot.
You had what?
I had that murder bot, remember?
Vaguely. Oh gosh. Now we got to play Borderlands 2 again.
We have it, so we're going to be playing it soon. Like, we're going to. But, sorry, what were you saying, Kyle?
So either way, I guess, maybe that's just something I'm not getting from this game, especially coming off of Apex, is that it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of tactics involved with the combat or the guns. Like, it just feels like all haphazard.
Mm-hmm. But, I would say, like, we played Borderlands 3 almost right after we played Borderlands 2, and we all kind of sensed something was off, right? Like, it wasn't apparent. And what was our go-to? Oh, if we play longer, it'll get better, right? Mm-hmm. Like and maybe that's just a bad like game like habit we have growing up playing games where like the game has like a slow start and it gets better. But I feel like we all kind of sense like, there's something different about this. It was like very subtle, and it's still hard for me to describe exactly, but I mean, I know one thing that's garbage about that game. The UI is
it's so bad.
How could you get worse? Like, not that Borderlands had the greatest UI, but it was at least did the job. This one is so bad.
I don't think we ever didn't know how to do something in Borderlands 2.
Right. Yeah, I think there were a couple things that were confusing at first, but then eventually started making sense. But in this game, it just feels like it's always... you're always fighting against it.
Exactly. And, like, even the skill tree is super confusing to me. Like, I kind of... Like, before it was, like, pretty simple in Borderlands 2. Like, you get 5... You fill up this row with, amount of, like, attribute points or whatever. Then you get the next row, right? And then you select the one that you want to, like, use. And it just buffs you. But this one, I think they went wrong when they went with the weird swapping out system. I think they thought that would be interesting and you could customize your character more. But dude, like there's like so many different things you can swap out and it's really hard to just tell.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of obvious like, oh, like when Zero hits a dude, like, I don't know, like I could feel the difference for some reason. Like even if it was a percentage difference, This game, it doesn't feel that way.
So here's what I had to say about that. When you first mentioned, when we were talking before, you mentioned the skill tree. And I was thinking in my head, like, what is he talking about? There was always 3 skill trees. Now I understand what you mean. You're talking about, there's like... So, alright, I'll just talk about my skill tree, because I haven't seen yours, but from what I understand, it's different. So with my skill tree, I have my ultimate, my skill. I can switch between 3 different skills.
Mm-hmm.
And they're super different. One is like kind of a blast out in front of me. One is another blast out in front of me, which is I guess it's more of like a trail.
Sounds like
than
the
a
same thing, but
projectile.
No, I'm sorry.
No. It's totally it's different. And then the third is a big fat ground pound, essentially. And so one is for ranged, one is for like medium, and one is for close range. I don't like having to... I don't know. I just kind of wish it was one. And then on top of that, there's like modifiers that you can unlock. Mm-hmm. So it's like, oh, now when any of my attacks hit somebody, they release a nova of my element. This, I don't know. This is just... It just feels too broad. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier, is that I don't know how to how to optimize my skill tree. Like we have so many options, but a lot of them don't feel like they lead anywhere. One thing I do like is that the siren, I forgot her name too, not Maya, I don't think. Maya was the last siren. But my character, she can switch between her active elements. So like by default, she uses electricity, but you can also use fire or acid, I think. Which is cool because like depending on who you're fighting, I could just pause my game really quick, switch to a different element, and then be like, you know, set up to fight, you know, the guy with lots of armor or the guy with a big hefty shield. But then we get to the UI problem again. I don't know how to disable. The way it works is that by default you're electricity, and then you enable one of these modifiers on top of that to override it. I don't know how to disable those modifiers to get back to electricity.
Oh gosh.
So I'm just stuck with fire or acid.
Well, see, that's the thing, and I think
really annoying.
I think what you're describing is my experience with my character. There's 3 different panes. They all, like, one's a robot, one's the shield, and one's something else that I still don't really understand what. I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I think that's the problem. Like, I don't connect with what the abilities are. Like, they're not obvious to me. But that's a whole. That's probably like that might be a personal problem. But you know, the thing is like the swapping of the slots. Like, I have like multiple slots that I can swap in and out things, but it's not super. It's just, I don't know. I think overall the swapping of things versus just the additive nature of Borderlands 2, which was cool. It just stacked. You know, just stacked, and you got better and better instead of like, oh, like now I don't have the ability to do the thing that I really enjoyed for 80% of the game because I got to a new tier and I have to switch out to something else that's not the thing that I like.
Right. I don't want to make choices. That's what I was getting at.
I don't want to make choices.
I want to make choices. I want to make choices about what I upgrade next.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then, oh, well, I want to do this, but I guess it has to wait. I don't want to make a choice where it's like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't because I chose something else instead.
Opportunity.
You know, I mean, I know a lot of skill trees are like that, where you have to make choices, and that's fine. But I feel like they just really went overboard.
Yeah, I think the strength in Borderlands 2 was that the skill tree was simpler in the way that you had the character only had one ultimate, and then you spent your time growing that ultimate into what you wanted to do with it. And so having it split across 3 makes whatever you choose seem less significant, I think. And then I guess I'll explain how my character works too, since you guys explained yours.
Yeah, what's your character? I like what
so his name is
the animal guy.
Flake, I think. FL4K. I don't know how to say
it's Flack. It must be Flack, right?
Yeah, so Dandruff has a pet. And also he has an ability for himself. And in choosing your ultimate, as well as like a secondary thing, I know I'm getting some of it wrong because I try to spend as little time in there as possible.
Right?
So I can choose between the monkey, who I found to be the best of the 3, a scab, the little dog things.
A skag.
Oh, yeah.
Skag. And the bird, not birds, like pterodactyls, bats.
Racks?
Racks, yeah. And so I can have one of those 3, but the rack had become available after I'd used one of the other 2 for a while, and it's like a projectile, so it doesn't fill the slot of my... I don't know, but this is the part where I'm at, where it's just super confusing, and then on top of that, it's also introducing to me ways of like improving my stealth and mobility, and you know, giving me these options between choosing between upgrading myself or my pet. And it feels very, what's the word? Like it doesn't feel uniform, I guess. Like it's pulling me apart.
Oh man, it's like an internal dilemma.
It's
tearing you apart, Lisa.
Exactly. And so I would really appreciate it if I had one ability as Flake, and then, you know, switching between the different creatures is a cool thing. I'm fine with that. But, you know, why so many options?
I think we can all agree that the teleporting UI at the terminals is just garbage.
Oh man, it
has the animating.
Dude, it's like this game, like it's like we go point by point, like the UI, the gameplay, like yeah, man, the map system, like dude, like why would you make your main like hub the most confusing thing ever?
Oh,
dude,
the ship,
dude,
yeah,
the fast travel, so bad.
And I get that you want to make this cool like multi-level like ship or whatever because it's a spaceship, like and I know in the Borderlands 2 it was like you were just in a city, you know, but like dude, like it's like they fired their whole level design team or something. Like
I much prefer the city.
Yeah, the city was just flat, like thing is here, and it was like even though it was like not the most iconic location, like you could get landmarks enough to figure out
it was
where
functional.
Exactly.
It did have landmarks, and it was functional. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess the ship kind of has landmarks, but I mean, the map is 2D. Why would you give us the main hub in a 3D space with a 2D map? Why?
Well, they have a 3D map. It is 3D.
If you open the map, you can like. If you open the map, yeah, you have access to a 3D representation of the space. But the little mini map in the corner when you're just running around is just 2D.
And I feel like it's... Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead.
No, you good. Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, I feel like the spaceship is also needlessly asymmetric. Because when it's on the ground and it's asymmetrical, then, you know, you'll run in a circle. So eventually you'll find the thing you're looking for. But when you're trying to go up or down, but a staircase is only in this specific area to bring you specifically down to this area, it feels terrible.
Yeah. I don't know how many times I've ended up in that same weird, like, bottom training area. I don't even know. Like, I can't even tell you what an area is. It just feels like a whole bunch of corridors with a whole bunch of different steps and ladder kind of situations and, like, doors. Just, man, it's...
You get a feel for it eventually. But you can't just say, oh, let's meet at Moxie's place and we get there. Like, we have to have an indicator on the map. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And even then, you kind of have to know, like, all right, Moxie's place is on the second floor, so make sure you go down on the second floor before you head over here. Because if you go over here first...
You're trapped.
You're trapped. You have to go to the staircase.
Yeah.
Yeah, that junk sucks.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where it's just like... I don't know, I can't. I mean, I've developed games. Kyle's developed games, and Steve, you have, you know, I've
seen games,
you know, and you've tried. You know, you're aware of the development process, but it's like, what is going through the team that can allow something? You know, like, is it because they're so used to it that they can't tell that it's bad? You know, like it's
like they're biased.
Yeah, it's like, oh, like, you know, when me and Kyle were making Amber, like, why we needed you to come in and play test is because we started making stuff and we were like, this feels really great. And then we gave it to you and you were like, what in the world? Like, what is happening? Why is this bear chasing me? You know, like... Well,
I know why a bear is chasing me. That's obvious.
You know, like, there's no objectivity when you're too close to your own, you know, after a point. Maybe that's the whole problem with Borderlands 3, you know?
Maybe. That just seems like such a simple answer. Like, surely everyone knows that that's a common pitfall that you should watch out for.
Especially a large development studio. Like
an experienced development studio.
And they got it so right with the prequel.
Yeah. Yeah. The prequel or the previous
BL2,
game?
Yeah.
Previous game. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, technically that's a prequel, right?
No.
A sequel... I guess a sequel has to... Now we're going to get into some real crazy conversation about what determines what a prequel... Because if something... Okay. So the first game... Okay, so Borderlands... If you're making 3 things in a row, right? Borderlands 3... Borderlands 1, Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3... The game prior to Borderlands 3 is the prequel, right? It precedes it, right?
If... In a loose sense, right? Like, if you're talking about the relationship between 2 games, you can say that, but I wouldn't call Borderlands 2 a prequel because it was made before the game. Whereas, what is it called? Borderlands the pre-sequel.
Oh gosh,
that's a prequel. It's set before a previous game. So in my mind, as long as the games come out in chronological order as the story goes or whatever, there are no prequels.
There's only sequels.
Yes.
So let me ask y'all a question. Is there any other game series that you ever like played where you're like, dude, we didn't need a sequel? Like I feel like I wanted a sequel from Borderlands 2 because I enjoyed Borderlands 3 so much, but like, I don't know if.
I think you said that wrong.
Yeah, I enjoyed Borderlands 2 so much that I was looking forward to Borderlands 3, but like in a way, I would have preferred if Borderlands 3 was never made personally. And
Wait. You're saying, so now that it's come out, no, you said that right, but I'm asking.
Okay.
Now that it's come out, you're saying, I wish it hadn't been made?
Yes.
Or you're saying that, I always wanted it, but I also realized it wouldn't be good, so I didn't really want it.
Retroactively, I wish it had never been made. Yeah. Like,
I
honestly was like, yeah, dude. Yeah, like Borderlands 3, Borderlands 9, like, it's going to be great, but...
It's hard to justify the state the game's in. Like, I don't think anybody expected it to be this.
Yeah.
We haven't even talked about performance on the base PlayStation. That junk chugs.
Chug a luck, man. Yo, I think I was telling y'all I've been playing Hyrule Warriors with my wife. Son, they were not ready for their own game. like, dude, man, there is a whole stage that literally is moving at like 12 frames per second. The whole game.
That's terrible.
Like, but it's almost like you just accept it. Like, yeah, this is what's going to be.
Come on, Nintendo.
You got to kill enough people on the stage to eventually get it back to like 24 frames. But that's like, hilarious. It's just.
I want to build a game that's about beating the state of chug. It's like the game crowds you with enemies, and the only way to win is to get back to 60 frames per second.
So you can accomplish some task that can't be done at a low frame rate.
Yeah. There's a spinning circle that you can only see what direction it's spinning at the proper frame.
You're like, oh no. Yeah. No, but no, like Borderlands 3 makes me think about, okay, I know this is heresy, but I'm going to say it because it's something I've been feeling for a while. I think this is the first time I've ever said it publicly. But I've actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, I'm actually tired of Zelda games. I'm tired of Zelda games. I've loved Zelda since Ocarina of Time. I've loved Ocarina of Time, of course. I've loved Majora's Mask, Minish Cap. What's the one with train tracks? Spirit Tracks. You love Spirit Tracks? Yeah, I really enjoyed. Not Spirit Tracks. No, Spirit Tracks. No.
It's called Spirit Tracks. The one with train tracks.
Yeah, but no. I don't think mine was Spirit Tracks. There's another one that you draw. Maybe it was Spirit Tracks. No. I don't know. I loved whatever game I played where you drew symbols on the DS. It was great. It wasn't. There's two of them. I played the first one. I've enjoyed it.
Okami?
Okami. Yes, that is mainly
Legend of Zelda.
What timeline is that? Is that the pre-Hyrule Warriors timeline?
I mean, it's got Wolf Link in it, right?
That's Okami
Wolf
Warriors.
Link. Oh, so wow! Look at that connection. This Twilight, the alternate Twilight Princess, where they don't win, they don't beat Ganon. But yeah, like honestly, like I kind of wish they would stop. It's like I think Breath of the Wild was awesome, and I think it was really cool. I almost wish it wasn't Zelda. Like I wish it was just another game that had
like its own IP.
Yeah, they kind of did that with what was that Phoenix?
Man,
game?
Don't bring up that game, son. Just get that out of my face. Come on.
I'm saying it probably would have had a similar reception. Yeah. It probably would have had a similar reception to that because that's pretty much what that game did. If it wasn't Zelda, it would have been Phoenix.
That's like saying like, oh, like I really loved some game in the PlayStation 2 era, like I don't know, like an action adventure, Metal Gear Solid, whatever. So I really am happy they made Overblood 2. For anybody who doesn't know what Overblood is, look it up.
Overblood but you 2. Are.
It is like an open world adventure game with action and laser beam swords and dinosaurs and awesome.
Yeah, baby.
Exactly. The Soul Pumpkin. Like it has everything that you'd want in a game, but no. You know what I'm saying? Like Phoenix Rising. But what I'm trying to get at is like,
well then Genshin Impact.
okay, that's a better comparison.
It's a different game.
But at the end of the day, like, my point is, like, I feel like it dilutes what Zelda is because, like, for me, it wasn't just the gameplay. Like, I didn't just love Ocarina of Time because it was fun and it had Z targeting. I loved it also because it was kind of like an interesting story and like what's gonna happen, and you know what I'm saying? Like, the story was kind of like a very integral part of it. Same with Twilight Princess, same with Minish Cap, even if the story wasn't like, you know, I don't know, like Last of Us level, you know, like, but it was great. And I feel like Breath of the Wild like killed me. Like, it killed me, son. Like, I was like, this story is garbage. Like I could not. That's why I honestly stopped playing it. Like, I was just like I enjoyed playing this, but I kind of hate it because it's Zelda. If that
all right.
That makes sense.
Speaking of hating things because of Zelda, did you try changing the voice acting to Spanish? Because the voice acting in that game killed me. Zelda's voice actor killed me. And changing it to Spanish made a world of difference. Because suddenly, it doesn't matter as much. Or Japanese, or whatever your preference.
So
any non-English.
So gibberish. At the end of the day, the story that is best when it's not a story that you can understand. That tells you everything.
No. I'm not saying the story is better. This is what I'm saying, right? The story is not better. The voice actress was so bad that I would have preferred no voice acting whatsoever. Like, she killed the entire voice acting for me.
She was
so that went to Spanish. It wasn't.
Was she one of the developers? Why was she so bad?
No, she's a voice actor.
She's a voice actress. It isn't that she's British. It's like she's just super breathy. She's like, you know, I can't believe I don't have my powers yet. It's like, dude, chill out.
Or the director?
I blame both. I don't know which to blame more. I wasn't in the booth. I can't tell you, but
fair enough.
You know, that was a decision that two people made. The director and God.
I don't think God was a part of that. Don't put that on God. Don't put that on God.
God made her voice, is what I'm saying. And I'm sure for some uses it's fine. But what I'm suggesting, Bradston, is that perhaps you would like the story better if it wasn't delivered with her voice.
No, I think the voice is hilarious. Like, to me, I don't want to say it was like unironically British, but like, it's okay. Okay. I'm gonna tangent, but I want to come back to this point. Okay, there is a movie called Gretel and Hansel. All right, The movie is absolutely garbage, but the part that makes absolutely zero sense is that every single character in the whole movie has like a British, European, Italian, you know, you name it, kind of accent. But the main actress in the movie has an American accent. And there's no lore that she's from somewhere else. She was 100% born and brought up in this world. But she has an American accent. And everybody else has a British, like, European accent. That killed me about that movie. I couldn't take it seriously. Similarly, Zelda Breath of the Wild is similar. Like, she's really the only British person, right? Like, I can't. Mm-hmm. But
I think her dad had some weird.
No, he was just regal. He's like, I am king of Hyrule. You know, like.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's not
British.
You're not British. How do you know?
I mean, being a king is kind of British.
Yes, royalty is a British thing.
It's definitely not an American thing.
America. But yeah, I think overall the story is just throwaway. Like, honestly, like, I mean, you guys explained the story to me, like, in the last recording of this podcast, in the zeroth episode. But honestly, like, that story could have been anyway. Like, it's just completely garbage to me. Like, what killed me was trying to get those stupid memories and then being like, this is so bad. Like,
not worth it.
Like, I felt disrespected that I went through all this effort to see Zelda in, like, standing near a tree and Link training his sword and her going, "You are so good with your sword, Link. How do you get so good?" And, like, that's the whole thing. And I'm like, okay.
Pretty much.
I'm like, delete this from my hard drive. Like
So,
From the Sheikah slate.
Beep, boop, boop.
so I have a similar story if you're ready for it.
Go for it.
Let's hear
So
it.
I mentioned Death Stranding in the 0th episode. I've been playing that game, and I got to this point in the game where this guy thinks that interrupt me if I told this story before, but he thinks that his girl was killed in this terrorist attack, and he blames you and not you specifically, but your company for working with terrorists and blowing up this city where she died and all this other stuff. And you find out that she's not dead, and you tell him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, deliver this like fancy hourglass that she made, and if it's really her, then she'll come with you and she'll come back to me, and I'll know it's her and she's not alive." Because he's not willing to take my word for it, which is fair. And I love how the game turns, a missing persons case into a delivery. But that is Death Stranding.
Game design.
That's game design, baby. And to be fair, it was actually a pretty cool mission. But I eventually get to Homegirl's house, right? And first of all, this old lady answers the door. And I'm like, oh, this must be the guy's wife. So I guess she's living with her mom. And so she answers, and, she's like, "Oh, thanks for delivering." And then this little girl comes out, or not little girl, but whatever, this young lady comes out. And it's clearly the woman from the video. And she's like, "Oh, I want to see him. I want to come with him." Dog. So first, let me tell you this. Every person in this game is American.
Okay.
It's set in the U.S., in what's left of the U.S., even though it's like, it's a Japanese game. Mm-hmm. It's Hideo Kojima.
If Norman Reedus is the lead, it's in Texas.
Norman Reedus and his fetus play a starring role in this game. Anyway, she comes out with the thickest Japanese accent I've ever heard speaking English.
Huh.
No.
I kid you not, I cannot try to do this accent. It would be offensive.
Please don't.
I would be canceled immediately. I paused the game. Like, she's talking, I pause in the middle of the cutscene, which you guys know I don't do. And I go online and I'm like, what is with this girl?
Snap.
And the people in the forums are like, yeah, I think she's like mentally handicapped or something. I'm like, no, you guys have a problem. She's not handicapped. She's just Japanese.
That's so messed up.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, with the L's and the R's getting mixed around, the broken English, all the words were there, all the sounds were there. You could understand what she was saying, but it was very much like, this is my first English class. And I cannot
voice acting.
I cannot tell you why they picked her. I assume she's the same voice actress for the Japanese version of the game. How
far into the game were you? Was this to like get your attention back or something?
That's a good question. It's hard to say how far into the game I am. Maybe I'm halfway in. I don't know, man. Anyway, I mean, the dialogue's kind of hokey, but you can live with it. It's fun. It's just hokey, emotional stuff. So you bring her with you in a body bag because the rain in this game is deadly and there's ghosts everywhere. So she's just strapped to your back.
That's normal.
In a body bag.
Normal America. Okay, continue.
Just normal post-apocalyptic America, and. You ice some monsters on the way back, and you bring her in, and you're unpacking her, and this guy comes out, and he helps stand her up, and they're looking at each other, and they're having this emotional, touching thing, like, my mom said you were dead, and, all this other stuff, but she's saying it in this ridiculous accent. And then later, she takes the hourglass that had been a gift to him, that he had kept while he thought she was dead, and then he gives it to me to deliver. And that she sees it and is like, oh, he's still alive, comes back with me, takes this hourglass, and she's like, it doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is our time together, and smashes it on the ground. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then she's like, I'm saying I want to marry you. And I'm like, what? Whoa, excuse me?
He's like, no, hey, I just wanted you to be alive. Girl.
How Japanese is this
economy? Serious about this.
No, this whole time I thought it was his daughter.
Oh,
like it was. I thought it was his daughter. And so I was like, he's
Kinda.
American, mom's American.
I mean, if it's Alabama.
I guess the mom left
boy.
because she doesn't like him anymore. But it's not his daughter. It's just his girlfriend. And that would be his mother-in-law that told her own daughter that her boyfriend was dead. Nice.
Sounds right.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a shock for me. And so they're having this touching moment. And he's like, I'll never leave you. I'll change my life around. Because he had been like depressed and dejected. And she's responding this busted up Japanese English. And
it's interesting because like, for those who don't know, I'm Jamaican by heritage, descent, all of those words. And my whole family, like all the aunts and uncles are Jamaicans, like straight from Jamaica. And, movies don't have a great, I guess you could say, track record with Jamaican accents. It's so disrespectful. Yeah, man, me's a Jamaican. Like, it's like Jar Jar Binks mixed with, like, it's like just terrible. But
Black Jar Jar, is that what you're going for?
So I don't even want to comment on it. So there's one game that I've ever played where the Jamaican it wasn't an accent. They got straight up Jamaicans. Like, they were so Jamaican, they had to translate them in game. It was I played.
It had subtitles?
No. Like, when I say in game, okay, this was Grand Theft Auto 4 or something, and there was like these two Jamaican guys, and it was me and one of my friends, Marcus. Y'all know Marcus. We were playing. He was watching me play, and there was like this one period of time where like you had to get a mission from somebody, but it was like from this Jamaican guy, right? And the Jamaican guy is like, yeah, man, me want to get this hunting. And he's saying all these things like super, super Jamaican, like thick accent. The other Jamaican character is translating for him, still with a Jamaican accent, but a little less Jamaican. And I was like, yo, like Rockstar, they found some real Jamaicans. And they were like, bro, ain't nobody going to be able to understand these people. Like, we need to translate. Like, the subtitles weren't even helpful because it was just like hunting and me have to go hunting. Like, it was crazy. It was wild. Like, but I was like, okay, like that was when I was like, respect. They got like real people. Like, instead of like getting some American person trying to do an Australian accent, just get an Australian. There's Australian voice actors out there. You know what I'm saying?
One or two of them.
So
it reminds me of that episode, that scene in Airplane with the guy speaking jive.
Oh my goodness! Yeah. Oh my gosh! And then the lady.
You mean the best scene in the
movie? Oh man, yeah. Rockstar though, they're on that level, man. That's probably an optional mission too.
Yeah, I mean, it was like they were like, I think, main path characters, but like you didn't have to do all the. I mean, I think that's a thing that I aspire to as a person, a creator, a developer, game designer, a husband. Like, I want to be as dedicated to the things that I do in my life as Rockstar is to anything. Because, like, the level of detail that they go through, like it's crazy. Like, when I see a game where they have, like, a poster that you'll probably never see that was clearly handmade and, like, lovingly made by an artist or a designer just to be in a back alley corner next to a dumpster that's like so realistic. You're like, what in the world? Like how? And of course it takes them years and years to make it. I just don't know if I'd have the resolve sometimes. That's what I think about. Like, could I make it to the finish line making a game like that,
Even when I was a kid, I would think about the radio when you're in the car driving around in the radio stations. And the fact that you can change the radio station. And I'm like, so are those shows playing in real time or do they just pause? Right? Like, how many hours of dialogue and songs and radio host banter did they record just for me to skip it and go to a different station?
Or turn off completely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Or that.
Yeah, and the game would have still been the great game that it was without the radio, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's like the thing when you're creating something, you got to think like, it's like levels to it, right? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's like, how do you get that thought to like take it to that next step down. Like, oh no, not only are they going to drive, they're going to have a radio. Not only is it going to be a radio, we're going to have like real radio personalities, and we're going to have like real music, and we're going to have this, and like, you know, even
situations unfold on
yeah,
the
and
news.
even sometimes it's situational on like the weather, like in like some of the games, like they'll say something, you know, it's like, what in the world? Like, I don't know.
Right.
You know.
And it's like, it reminds me of a quote that I heard, and I remember it a lot because it goes into, I guess, my daily tasks, if you want to say. But great design is invisible. And it's like, I think games like Grand Theft Auto, where people enjoy them, like it's a palpable enjoyment, and it's a, you know, on the fundamental level, it's a simulation game, and it's just like, it's so well designed that the game itself is like invisible in light of just how enjoyable the experience is. Like, it's crazy.
On the other hand, you can have experiences like in Borderlands 3 where these stupid, obnoxious NPCs will not shut up, and you literally turn the dialogue audio down to like 15% just so you can have a modicum of peace.
Yeah, I feel like that's when you really don't understand. Like, you really think too well of yourself. You know, like you think like people need to hear this. It's like, it's something that I had to really learn early when creating games, like, is that like some people do not care about your story. No matter how much you try to put it in front of their face, they're going to skip that junk, or they're just going to leave the room. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember like my first game, I let this kid play it, and he was like, your game's really cool. Like, and I was like, oh, thank you. He's like, I just wish there was less of the story stuff. Like, and I was like, oh, that's where I put all my heart. You know, like, it hurt me so bad, but I was like, you know what? That's real. Like, not that I should phone in the story, but I got to realize, like, some people don't care about it. You know, like, that's just, some people going to turn the radio off, you know, like, and that's okay. You know, you got to be okay with that.
I think it's funny. We're coming back around now. I think Nintendo is an excellent example of going the other way and saying, you know, I'm going to have gameplay and put my heart and soul into that, and the story is just a vehicle. And usually we're fine with that. But if you think about it, Mario games almost all have ridiculously stupid or simple stories. Even Legend of Zelda probably has the most story of like any mainline Nintendo franchise. And in Breath of the Wild, they didn't care. Or not that they didn't care, but they...
I'm not too familiar, but Metroid's probably a close second to Legend of Zelda.
In terms of more story or less story?
The most story.
Yeah, the most. I said a close second to Legend of Zelda as far as like how much development.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree. At least the early Metroid games had very little story. In fact, they're like, I think Metroid has 0 dialogue, barely any words on the screen to begin at all. And later games had more and more dialogue, but like the entirety of Metroid 2's story on the Game Boy came in like, I think, a splash screen at the beginning of the game. Like, you're on a mission to kill Metroids, from the Federation. Good luck. And everything else, they do have a story, but they tell it through environmental storytelling and things that you pick up on the way without actual telling you things. And so
I guess in my mind, I'm kind of combining this idea of writing a story and telling a story. And I think, like,
that's fair.
This is where it just based off of like the Mario example, where it kind of falls flat in both areas. Like, you can't, like, there's really no, especially in like an Odyssey, you can tell somebody what happened, but it's not like a story.
I think what I was trying to say is that at least in the older Metroid games, what story they have, that they do have, they don't tell you. They tell it, as we just talked about. But they also just didn't have much story. Like, everything, all the lore has been built up around the games after the fact. And newer games have their own lore. But like, a lot of stuff that we know about Samus's life comes from like the Metroid manga and newer games. the old games didn't have anything. It was just open for your imagination.
You know what? You might have just changed my mind about my perspective on Zelda Breath of the Wild. Because as I'm reflecting on, I'd like to say that I'm pretty well versed in the history of games. I very much love video games, and something I really, really do care about. And knowing the history of Zelda, knowing that the first game is exactly like you described Metroid, right? Like, hey, save the princess. Like it was just like, and there was maybe some stuff in the booklet, but like 90% of that was just completely just garbage they made up because they got to have some kind of story, right? But really the focus was the gameplay, and Nintendo's always been 100% gameplay first, right? And that's why they're so good at whatever game they make. They made Mario Golf. That game is fire, son. Like that don't even make no sense. But
it really doesn't.
But I think the reason I'm going back is because now that I think about it, I recall like an interview or reading something where the designers of Breath of the Wild really wanted to return to the original style of Zelda, right? The original Zelda is an open world game, if you think about it, right? Like you're just adventuring, and the story took a back seat. I think probably how I feel about it is that the story should have been completely like just almost I guess you have to have a story. You got to put it as a bullet point. But I think number one, the story was just badly executed. But I respect what they're, now I got to go back and play the game, man. Oh my goodness. Because now,
go finish the game.
Because now I have a respect for it differently, because I'm like, this is a game about adventure, exploring. And I'll say this, when I kind of forgot about the story, that I was playing a Zelda story game, I had some really cool experiences that I really enjoyed. I think it was any time that I started to invest in the storyline that I got really discouraged and disappointed, and I was like, nah, I'm good. So now I might have to change my opinions, man.
Yeah, because now you got me thinking about it too, is that it does seem like it wants to like straddle the fence as far as either it's open world or it's going to guide you in the story. It's like if you want to go for the story stuff, there's so much, which is good, but a lot of it like overstays its welcome in its pieces. So like if you just want to experience a little bit, just get a little nugget, it's kind of harder to do that unless you have like the little one-offs, I guess you can call, like where if you meet people on the side of the road or something, they're only going to bring you to one place and do something. But if you do something like with a main character, and then like it turns into like this hours and hours thing that you kind of can't get out of. I mean, you can leave, but it's just like there's not. And maybe it's just me, but it just feels like that you kind of get stuck until you finish whatever they ask you to do.
It's interesting,
and then you can go.
It's interesting that you say that, because I would say that from my time playing the game, the weakest parts, the parts that I disliked the most is when I was being told to go a certain direction, and it felt like I had to do a particular thing, and it just felt like it was kind of weak. But my favorite parts was just interacting with random villagers and doing some random quests, and then some random like outcome of this thing that I was doing. I was like, oh, that was unexpected, and that was kind of cool. So yeah, I feel you on that. Like it almost felt like like maybe the story was an afterthought, honestly, and all of the world interactions, engagements was like, first part and
paramount.
Yeah. I think honestly they should have just stepped away from like trying to pretend like the story was anything. Like
they had to have a conceit.
Yeah, but you just described it, the Mario games, right? Like what really happened in Mario Galaxy, Odyssey? Like who cares? Like I would say like. I can't even tell you if I skipped the cutscenes or if I watched them, because they just are so irrelevant to me.
It's about the same, and they're so short.
Yeah,
I think there's a slight difference there, and I was actually about to bring this up anyway. But what Breath of the Wild loses in storytelling, or whatever, the main story, I think it really makes up for in lore, right? Like and that's something in general that the Zelda franchise is huge on, is lore. So even if the individual stories of what happens aren't that important, all the history we learn about what came before and the way that the story is stitched together, people are obsessed with it. And I mean, it's really cool when you're just going through the countryside and talking to people and hearing about, like, you hear about how Hyrule used to be before Calamity Ganon took over, and you hear about these relationships between the Hylians and the Zora, or like, and all this stuff that happened. And I think the difference between that and Mario is that Mario doesn't have any consistent lore. Like, it's, at least not that I'm aware of, it seems very unclear how any of the games relate to each other, if they're in the same universe.
Right.
I mean, they just casually bring in like new areas all the time. They have reoccurring characters sometimes, but sometimes the new characters just never exist again. The Mario lore is just it's actual nonsense. So like,
it facilitates the gameplay. Yeah. That's all it's there to do.
Yeah, and that's fine. You know, I'm not critiquing that, but I think that makes it's a different experience. Like, we don't expect Galaxy to make sense from a bird's eye view.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if like they accidentally made great lore. Like, they just naturally, like, you know, like you haven't played Ocarina of Time, Steve, but like there's like, you know how you said the lore of the world, like there's in have you played Twilight Princess, Steve?
Yes.
So Twilight Princess kind of reminds me of Ocarina of Time in the sense that you encounter these like magical creatures who are kind of like, you know, beings from, you know, almost before time, you know, and they like have powers that you don't understand. It's like, oh my goodness, like kind of like what makes Star Wars cool, right? Like, what's happening? Yeah. You know,
it's the fantasy setting.
Yeah. And I think that they, you know, and not that I'm a master of Japanese culture, but I do think that Japanese culture really does a great job of imbuing stories that have been passed along within their culture into their games. Yeah. You know, like things that seem like, oh, this is really random. It's like, no, this river spirit is like actually a thing, like you know, like maybe a Shinto god or something like that. And they kind of wrap it in and then they change it, but they kind of put a lot of different pieces in. And sometimes it's like it comes together magically, and it almost feels like when they try to make an American story, because it really that's what it feels like. Breath of the Wild is like this weird American, almost Americanized kind of story, you know, instead of more of an anime, you know.
Really?
Well, not
really dig into the fantasy side. Yeah, yeah. I guess now that you mentioned it, does feel like it's too grounded at times. Even, I mean, it's very fantastical.
Absolutely.
You know? A lot of it, you know, doesn't make sense. But I think I see where you're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like
I don't think it's grounded. I would say that there's not as much crazy stuff happening, but there's not a lot of events in the game. So I think that's just why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of all those things.
Yeah, like it's, you know, if you ever heard about plots, there's like character driven and event driven, and the game is kind of character driven because you explore the world and like things happen because you do them. But there's some event driven things, right? Like, oh, the beast, if it doesn't do this, then this doesn't happen, and da, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's one of those situations where, like we've described, it was like they had a focus, but they felt they needed to add something because people care about it. But like, I don't know. It just felt hokey, you know? Like, it just felt hokey. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, there's only 2 canonical events in the entire game, which is Link wakes up and then Link kills Ganon, or Calamity Ganon. Like, nothing else that happens in the game can really be truly said to be part of the story, because it's not, they don't make you do it.
Very true.
And I guess it kind of feels that way as a result.
Exactly.
That's a very good point.
So plot-wise, it feels like nothing happens, and the only plot we do get is memories. And those are not character-driven. Those are things that happened. They definitely happened. Whether you get the memory or not, it definitely happened. But it happened before the game.
No impact on anything.
Exactly. And I think they did that on purpose, right? They made them so that they wouldn't have an impact, because it was kind of a bonus, right, to get it.
Sure.
And normally, like, a bonus, like, oh, I'm going to figure out something cool about the story. It's normally, like, feels cool, but, like, it's just, you know, Mario characters playing golf, you know, in many ways. Like, it's just, hey, like, this is a thing, like, but we don't want you to actually have to get it because we don't want it to affect the story, you know, like, this is just more of a history of things. That's very interesting. Man, y'all done messed me up, man. I'm over here trying to hate Breath of the Wild, and now I'm over here reevaluating everything.
For what it's worth, it's a good game.
Yeah, it's definitely gameplay wise.
Just Just think about weapon breaking, and you'll hate it again.
Oh, gosh.
You know what? I dislike weapon breaking a lot less than I dislike random rain that makes it impossible for me to finish climbing up a thing that I've already gotten 75% of the way up, that I spent 20 minutes climbing, and then I have to wait for the rain cycle to finish before I can continue.
That's real.
And you can't build a fire to wait it out because it's raining.
And the game gives you, or you have the ability to purchase like a climber's outfit at one point, and it has no effect on the rain. Like you still can't climb.
Yeah,
and so it's like the solution was there. Like, you want to have this mechanic in here that deters me, I need to overcome. Fine, but give me a way to do it.
Yeah, give me a way to overcome it, right? Like, and yeah, like if I okay, I made it 75% up this mountain. My only other option is to slide down and hopefully not die, you know?
Right.
Or I just wait it out. And I think that those are, you know, well, once again, systems, right? That I don't necessarily think they designed it to be annoying like that, but it's just a consequence.
I think it's a byproduct.
I think it's really interesting because, you know, I hear that complaint a lot, specifically about the rain. And it's not like I have any technology or techniques that you guys don't have, but the rain really doesn't bother me. Maybe I don't know. I just feel like, oh, I can't do this right now. I'll go do something else.
I'll say that it was an issue for me until I stopped climbing as much, and it was the reason between that and having to choose whenever I had my orbs to get more stamina or more health or whatever, and not put enough stamina in the beginning because I wasn't sure what I needed to do. All that mess. But nice. I would say that the game pretty much guided me from the early part between both of those things not to climb.
Well, I will say this: in the early part, assuming you do the animals, the divine beasts, in the way they want you to, if you start with oh god, I forget their names. The elephant.
The Zora.
Yeah, the Zora domain. It's raining a ton. That's part of the story. That's meant to keep you from climbing, to guide you along a specific path. So like I don't think like anyone should complain about that. Obviously, I don't mind.
I actually completely forgot about that section.
Okay, good. Yeah, just making sure. I will say I had a great time with that. I recently restarted the game in master mode, which is insanely hard, and I decided I didn't want to go down that path, especially not in master mode, and so I went all the way around, I guess, Laniru Mountain, and I found a path that I could climb up the back of the mountain with my, very low stamina and no weapons or anything, and I basically climbed up and I came in from the back door to the Zoro domain and didn't have to take the rainy path at all. Nice. And I was so proud of myself. And to me, that's what Breath of the Wild is about, right? It's about...
It definitely thrives in those moments.
Coming up with new ways to do something stupid. And then I tried to, because I ended up on top of the mountain, I tried to paraglide to the elephant, which was basically right below me in this giant lake. And you're supposed to talk to the royals and then get in the lake and surf around and do this little mini game, and then you can get in the elephant. Mm-hmm. But I was like, let me just paraglide to him because I'm definitely close enough. And a giant barrier appeared and took out half my hearts and threw me back at the mountain, and I almost died. So
oh, no.
There's pros and cons to trying things your own way, but for the most part, it supports you.
Well, I want to. This is a slight change of conversation, but I think the reason that particular element of the rain, disallowing me to climb, is because I'm an adult now and I don't have time for that.
That's fair.
It's kind of like when I play Apex, right? The biggest issue I have with Apex is me waiting around to load and get into the main menu, right? I almost whenever I play, I kind of turn Apex on and I load it the first time and then I go do something else. Because I know the first time I won't get in and the second time I'll get in and then the game freezes. I figured this out, but to me, that's super annoying that I have to like optimize my life to play a game. And I'll tell you this, like the reason I don't get to play many games is because I have so much other things that I'm doing and want to do that like when I play a game, I want to play it for the 30 minutes to an hour. And if I'm like, ooh, I want to get to the top of this mountain within this 20-minute experience that I have, and then it rains, it kills me. Like it kills my spirit for the whole rest of the day because all I want to do is like have some fun, you know? And I think that's the problem I have with it. Like when I was like 12, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. You know, when I was 21, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. When I was 25, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. And I think really honestly, now that I just feel like I have more responsibilities in life and more things to do, and gaming experiences like, you know, are very, very precious to me. Like it hurts more when I feel like I spend, like me and Kyle tried the other day to play Halo online together, you know?
Oh, gosh.
Dude, that destroyed my spirit, you know? Like, it destroyed
really
my spirit. Yeah, like, it's like...
Was it long wait times?
Well...
We couldn't get it to work.
Exactly, and we spent like, I don't know how long, maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, close to an hour.
Yeah, basically...
Looking at stuff online.
Mm-hmm. Like, we're over here trying to do this and change port forwarding, da-da-da-da. But honestly, that was like the time that we finally got to play a game together, right? Like, Kyle's got a schedule, I got a schedule, right? And our hours destroyed because of some weird, you know? And
who knows what? Something that they're aware of, it seems like, because they had support on their page, but it was all this, like, behind-the-scenes stuff. Like, there wasn't anything direct. And it was we were playing through Steam.
Through Steam.
You know what? I've recently had issues playing Gears of War with some of my friends, and it just popped up out of a sudden. Like I basically every time we start playing, I get kicked out of the game, and then I can't get back in again. And I wonder, it couldn't be the same issue, but it is Xbox, so it might be the same issue.
It might be.
I mean, I'm playing on the PC through Steam as well, but it does have to connect to Xbox's servers.
And that to me is really kind of one of the core reasons that I enjoy the console over a PC any day, is because I know that 90% of the time, 95% of the time, when I sit down in front of my PS4 and I boot it up and I play the game, hoping that it doesn't have an update, because that's the worst. But if it doesn't have an update, I'm going to play the game. I don't know how many times I got on Steam and some weird thing, and then Steam wants to log me out, and then all of a sudden it's being weird and it's crashed and I can't load the game, but it needs a thing that Steam random hook, and then I go online and I find out, oh, that this driver is weird and you got to do it. Like, dude, I just want to play my game. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know.
Right. I paid for it. This is the time I set aside.
Yeah. Yeah. I
feel disrespected, man.
I've had that experience a few times with Steam, yeah.
And I expect, like, the older we get, the more disrespectful these moments will feel. You know, when we have children, when we have older parents that we need to help, you know, maybe we are married and this and that, and we're more involved in the community, and we're doing a lot of things, and we just want, hey, I got an hour. Oh, Steam got an update. Oh,
right.
You know.
I think a lot of people assumed too that we would give up gaming at some point once we got up to this age, just because when gaming was on the rise, you know, we were younger. Like, we grew up with this stuff, but people who were older than us that gamed, they kind of grew out of it.
Yeah.
Around the age we are now. And so there aren't a whole lot of developers who are really targeting us specifically. People who, you know, don't want to give it up necessarily, but still we have the same reasons, I guess, and responsibilities why people did give it up. It just wasn't as integral and a big part of their life as it is for us. Yeah,
that's a really interesting and maybe true. Like, it's, yeah, like for us, because it's so integrated into our lives, it's like a part of what we do. Right? Like, it's not just a thing that we did, you know? And it's not only is it a part of us individually, it's a part of our culture, right? Like, if you miss out on the latest Zelda game, you're behind, you know, all your friends who, you know, so it's kind of like there's also like, what's it called? FOMO, you know, like, FOMO. You know, and that's kind of how it's now embedded. And so And yeah, like there's no games that are just like targeting. I think that's what indie games try to do. Like they're made by kind of normally older people who've had gaming in their lives. So they try to make
older
games
millennials
for themselves, which essentially resonate amongst more adults. So I wonder as like we age more, like now we're in our 40s, like will the gaming landscape, maybe even the indie gaming landscape look different, you know?
Right.
I wonder if the indie gaming landscape will ever transition out of pixel art.
Likely not.
Until
I think it's here to stay.
Until pixel art becomes different. I think it's just a question of what's the easiest possible thing you can do with a small team. So yeah, that's never going away.
Which I find to be, I don't know, as someone who's worked in both 3D and in pixel art, I don't really see, other than the accessibility of the tools, I don't see that big of a time difference. You know, I mean, if it's a smaller game and you're making like flat backgrounds, then for sure 2D makes more sense. But the complexity of these games that are coming out now, unless they're buying asset packs, they're spending just as much time.
Well, think about it this way. How do you start your design career? You probably started by drawing on paper, right? And by drawing on paper, that's a flat 2D thing. So you can probably translate your skills more easily to a flat 2D thing if you're a good artist than trying to take these cool anime looking designs into a 3D world that feels right, you know? Because now you got to worry about the front, the back, the side, if somebody looks up, if somebody looks down, you know, like there's just so many more elements. And I just feel that, and then I think you hit the nail on the head with the tool price as well. I think that's, you know, there's so many more free, you know, 2D things.
2D tools.
And there's tools that kind of can take a higher level resolution thing and bring it down to look more.
But so few indie games use like high resolution models. Like it's either pixel art or it's low poly.
Yeah.
And I guess those are the ones that I'm kind of comparing. Is that, you know, if it's only got 50 vertices, you know, it looks enough like what it's supposed to look like, kind of like your, you know, shabby pixel art does. But I guess the argument I'm making, though is that the pixel art that they're making isn't shabby. Like this is some really high level stuff.
And I think it's nostalgic as well. I think it just means more, right? Like you grew up looking at these things and you're now making the thing that you loved, you know? Like I think there's some of that motivation that drives people to put in the effort and put in the work because they're like, oh man, you know, I want to make a game just like Name the Game, you know? When I was 12, when I was 8, you know, because I think that's 90% of what indie games are, like driven by like developers, at least.
For sure.
Nostalgia. I want to play Harvest Moon. I want to play Doom. I want to, you know, like they're focused on the thing that no longer exists, right?
Keisha won't play some games that I suggest because she doesn't like them when they look blocky. It drives me crazy.
No voxels.
No, she means pixels. Like she doesn't like pixel art.
But doesn't she like what's it called? Stardew Valley?
Stardew Valley?
She does like Stardew Valley, so I don't know how she puts up with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she just has to play a game and then realize she likes it. That's like
gotta get past the visuals. I mean, that's the hurdle too.
She dates Harvey in Stardew Valley. This pixely mustache and his goofy glasses. She's like, "Oh, he looks like you." I'm like, "No, he doesn't."
I think.
But it's funny that she doesn't like pixel art, but she can see me in this pixelated 2D portrait of Harvey.
She loves dating them nerds. You know, I think it's the same thing with like any art form, like, you know, anime. Like, oh, I'm not watching that. That's like that weird Japanese like nerd stuff, you know, or like me trying to get somebody into MMA. Like, they just see it as like dudes punching each other and blood, and oh man, Conor McGregor's ankle broke. I'm like, that's like the 1% thing. Like 90% of fights don't even look like that. Matter of fact, 90% of fights are like,
hugs.
Yeah, and you know, in understanding, you know, like I think there's
I think that's like with
What were you saying, Kyle?
I was gonna say those highlights though is like that's usually what people gravitate to whenever there's something that's foreign. Because that's a similar thing happens like when people go to watch monster trucks. Like a lot of people want to go watch it because they want to see them flip. But then you get there and then they actually kind of rarely flip. And so people are disappointed.
So are you big into monster trucks? I've never heard you mention it before.
Oh, yeah, man. I went to Monster Jam a lot when I was a kid. My brother actually sent us information about something that's going down in, I want to say August.
Oh, wow.
The family might go to.
Yeah, I've been to one monster truck show in Atlanta. It was so loud. That's the one thing I remember as a kid. Like, it was so loud, but I could feel it, and I loved it. It was like feeling just everything. It's just like, and like, you know, normally things were just like there's like this giant truck with like 20 wheels. It was so awesome. You know, I haven't got a chance to go again, but you know, hey man, if you tell me one and I'm down, I'll go. You know, let me know.
Well, you ain't here no more.
Hey, you come find one in mid-ground. Come like Atlanta or something. 8 hours up. All right,
guys, get a room, guys.
Haters gonna hate. Well, you know, speaking of getting
just for that, you can't.
You ain't coming. We gonna even tell you. We gonna take pictures, put it on Instagram. We gonna hashtag. I wonder where Steve is.
Hashtag no Steve.
Hashtag haters gonna hate monster trucks. But you know, on that note of getting a room, I don't know if that's even a good segue. We're gonna probably wrap up this episode. I appreciate you guys listening to us talk and ramble about all kind of things. You know, like honestly, I have so much more to say about all these topics.
For sure.
And I know they'll come back up, you know, again when we talk again. But yeah, man, it's always a joy talking to you brothers, man. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Steve. You know, any last remarks before we end this episode?
Always a pleasure, man.
I think weapon durability in Breath of the Wild is underrated and should be appreciated more.
And with that, you know, the show will no longer have Steve on it, but we appreciate your time, and your opinions are not valued here. So, no, but really,
Borderlands 3 is a great game. Borderlands 3
great game. It is a testament to what we can do as a human civilization. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm sorry. Borderlands 3 is boo-boo. That's the official take.
That's the lesson for today.
But once again, thank you guys for checking out this episode of Super Agile Brothers. We love you guys, and we will talk to you guys again. Y'all take it easy. Peace.
Deuces.